The announcement of the closure of one of France's biggest car factories just outside Paris comes as another warning of the decline in the sector. Since the 1980s, there's been a series of closures of iconic sites in French automaking history, such as the Citroën site on the Seine in Paris, the Renault factory in Boulogne-Billancourt. Well, today, with the rise of foreign manufacturers, especially in the electric and hybrid market, there's an even tighter squeeze on French car makers. And with this comes a suggestion that factories and workers perhaps could be repurposed into the defence sector as Europe looks to go ahead, less and less relying on American hardware, who will make it here. This from James Vassener.
Two industries that are in very different form. On one side, car manufacturers are experiencing some of their darkest days, with low purchasing power, high energy costs and competition from China. It's almost impossible for Europeans to rival with. On the other side is a booming defence market. First, the war in Ukraine pushed countries to rearm, and now colder relations with the United States are forcing EU leaders to up their own arsenal, increasing the demand for weapons. So, can the two work together to their own advantage? Experts say that skills in the automotive sector are easily transferable, whether within car companies themselves or the parts suppliers. And some have already struck deals. France's Ministry of Armed Forces reached out to Renault to help develop military drones for the country's army. And parts supplier Valeo is also working on drones, while others are to produce shell casings. Over in Germany, Volkswagen is said to be in discussions to provide parts for Israel's defence systems. The firm could even convert one of its struggling factories in the process, saving over 2,000 jobs. It wouldn't be the first time that Volkswagen ventures into the military sector, having built armed vehicles during World War II. And the trend isn't restricted to Europe. In the United States, where companies already provide vehicles and technology to the military, the Pentagon reportedly approached several major manufacturers to increase their production to meet the demand for the war in Iran.
James Vassener with that report. Let's broaden our analysis and bring in Rico Luman, who's Senior Economist for Transport and Logistics at the ING Bank in Amsterdam. Rico, thanks for being with us here in France 24. We appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to your analysis on this, because this concept of switching from domestic car production to weapons of war, it might seem to be quite a leap. Do you think it is possible?
It seems quite a leap, but it's kind of overlapping indeed, as mentioned, on the technical side. So in terms of expertise and skills, it's very much similar. So you can think of the supplier industry indeed, so components for the automotive industry can also be used in many cases in the defense industry. So the people, engineers, but also workers can possibly easily shift to defense purposes. So it will be possible to deploy or reallocate factories for the defense industry in this way.
There are already existing defence industries across the world. Would this kind of move be something that they would be against? Would it be something that would make them angry in a sense? At the present moment in time, their share prices are soaring. They're making great profitability out of what is happening around the world. And some would say that's immoral, but that's perhaps a different argument. Would the present day defence industry be angry at this kind of development, seeing car manufacturers turn into defence manufacturers?
Well, there's so much growth around in the defense industry, right? So there's a huge opportunity, and it's a matter of capacity in many ways. So I don't think they're angry. It's just diversifying capacity, and they can also interlink with each other when it comes to components. And countries can easily, more easily, raise production and defense spending on in this way. So that's a benefit, I would argue.
What kind of government help would be required, Rico, for this? Because what we're talking about, I suppose, is national security issues rather than just selling a product. So what kind of government accompaniment or intervention would you expect?
Yeah, it's not easy to go into this business, right? So you need a certification as a company. So it takes time, and it's for the long run, I would say. So the huge or the large automotive players, they already moved to the defense industry. And for new entrants, it will be a long-term bet to do this. So it is a requirement in many ways to obtain certificates for this purpose.
Okay, so that would happen. I was thinking whether there would be kind of like a nationalisation aspect to this. Would we see, for instance, companies made into national concerns, owned and run by government bodies in order to create what is needed for government forces, armies, navies, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I would assume countries have high quality standards indeed. So it's not for every company, but I think you need to raise or to get to a certain quality standard to get into this business, and they will be selective in this process of tendering. But it's definitely an option and also an opportunity for many companies. But because in automotive, we've seen several years of low production already. So they're really struggling with overcapacity and this shift to EVs, which idles a lot of workers and staff, and they are all in the process of restructuring. So this offers a way out in many ways to at least redeploy people and keep production up.
What kind of things? Because I'm finding it difficult to really envisage where this goes, Rico. So help me and maybe help other people watching who, like me, perhaps don't quite see how this works out. For instance, if Volkswagen, which began, of course, during World War II with the people's car, Hitler, of course, linked to all of that. That's the past. Volkswagen, of course, now a clean concern involved in producing good vehicles, quality vehicles. But if they start to produce on a military level, what are we talking about producing? Are we talking about producing actual vehicles or something bigger or actual armaments?
Well, we're seeing already companies like Daimler Trucks or Traton or Renault indeed producing vehicles for the army. But it's now spreading towards all sorts of components as well. And these components can be used in all kinds of appliances and equipment for the defense industry. So it's diversifying, and this offers quite some opportunity next to just making cars. And for instance, in the Netherlands, we've seen the company Netcar shifting away from making cars for BMW to making drones. And as mentioned, other companies like VW are also looking into redeploying factories.
I'm wondering in the back of my mind whether one day we'll see a Renault, Citroën, Peugeot tank, that kind of thing, perhaps. I'm not sure whether that's in your mind at all. But you mentioned drones, and that's really interesting because do you think that the car companies may be looking to refurbish, retrain, reshape themselves in the future? We'll look at, say, what happened in Ukraine and how they were able to respond to a dire need to create from scratch our whole defence industry, basically by crowdfunding, that kind of thing. Do you think there'd be something that car makers could learn from here?
It's extraordinary indeed what happens in the Ukraine. Well, it's a specialism in itself, of course, building drones. But I'm sure it overlaps in a way with the expertise the workers have and many engineers have on the automotive side. So it's definitely an opportunity to look and see if you can, well, spread out.
Rico, we need to leave it there. Thank you for your insight. Greatly appreciated, and I'm looking forward to see how this develops. Rico Luman, Senior Economist for Transport and Logistics at the ING Bank in Amsterdam. Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge with us. Greatly appreciated.